What is the difference that cab or cab IR makes to your guitar tone? As guitarists, we're all obsessed with getting the biggest, the clearest and the most brutal guitar tones we ever could. And some of you know that cab is actually a big part of it, bigger than you think. Today, I would like to do a scientific comparison together with you in order to understand actually how much of an influence cab IR makes to the tone. To achieve so, I'm gonna run two of my different amps into a single cab IR. These amps will have completely different settings and even different overdrive pedals, and we'll listen to it in the mix. And then I'll switch to using a single amp head, and I'll use three different types of IRs. And we'll do a scientific comparison, level matched, and we'll draw our conclusions together. I haven't done it yet, so that'll be a fun exercise to do. Let's get on to it. I'm Dr. Mark Trubetskov, the mad scientist of metal, and I'm here to bring valuable content for your metal productions. Like and subscribe to never miss out, man. Let's get on to it. Okay, cool. So I did the reamping yesterday, it took me a little bit, and then I played around with some cabs and played around with different impulse responses and compare them, and I have very, very interesting conclusions to share with you. So let's just get into the Reaper and have a listen to what I came up with. For this test, I'm using free multitracks supplied by a website called tight/sound.site. Link in description, tight/sound.site. Have no affiliation with the guys, but they seem to provide really cool multitracks for free, so just have a look if you need to. Now, here's the project. Drums and bass have been pre-mixed beforehand, and guitars are completely unprocessed. All they have is an impulse response, primarily own hammer, and some others, which I will get onto later, and the guitar bus. Each guitar amp bus has a multiband compressor for the low chugs to dive in. That's all, no EQ at all. These are pretty much raw and they are level matched as well, so that the output level of each bus is similar. Let me walk you through the layout of the session. So, there are 4 tracks for each amp, as were in the multitracks. I reamped 4 DIs for each. We got Engl Blackmore output, custom audio amplifiers OD100 output, and then for the third amp I'm using AmpKnob by Bogren, which is really cool, check it out, with cab disengaged going into AmpKnob output. All these 3 amps have the very same cab, check it out, it's the same preset here, I dropped it. I promise it's exactly the same, identical. Bogna Vintage 30 plus T75. For the second part of the test, I duplicated custom audio amplifiers and changed cabs thrice. So we got custom audio amplifiers output with cab 1, 2, and 3. And these are completely different cabs from different collections. It's a blind test in this regard, let's just not even look at those cabs. And again, you can see no processing whatsoever. So, without further ado, let's take a listen and see what we think. First is Engl Blackmore in the mix. Right? Next, custom audio amplifiers in the mix. I like the mids a bit more in this one. And lastly, AmpKnob in the mix, the plugin. So, from this brief test, the conclusions become pretty much obvious. The amps ran into a single cab do not differ that much. Yes, sure, there is a difference in the character, especially the way the amps promote the mids, the way the low-end dynamics works, and the way the treble is delivered. Some are more rich, some are sharper and smooth, but overall, the tone is not vastly different, and in the mix, it differs even less. Let's listen to those amps in solo and compare them a little bit more. So, Engl Blackmore. Sounds quite cool. I'm noticing that the top end is kinda sharp, and the grain, the way it is delivered, is further up the spectrum, so more trebly frequencies. And the low end is a bit muddy, but that may have to do with the way I set up the amp. Custom audio amplifiers. Well, I like CAA a lot more. It pushes the mids in a really cool way, and it sounds more modern to me. Plus, it's kinda smoother and richer and more refined, and the low-end dynamics is really nice. But it's not day and night sort of difference. AmpKnob. Yeah, so I still like CAA the best. However, AmpKnob sounds really nice as well. It provides the top-end air that is missing from the other amps. And all three have different mid-range character. But the tone, as I mentioned before again, isn't that vastly different. So this is the first part of our comparison. Same cab with different amps. Now, since objectively CAA fits the best for this track, in my opinion, I wanted to run CAA into different cabs in the mix. So let's take a look at that. Random cab 1. I kinda hate it, to be honest. However, the mid character that was in the original cab is kinda preserved. Keep that in mind. Cab 2. The difference is kinda enormous. Huge difference. Cab 3. Let's listen to them in solo. Initial. Cab 1. Cab 2. Cab 3. I think this is a good place to stop this comparison and draw some conclusions. I can hear how much of a dramatic difference to the tone a cab makes, but doing this in a scientific way, level matched, all these amps were exactly the same level based on the level meter that I inserted on my mix bus. And these were unprocessed, raw. I can go a bit further and draw this kind of conclusions. So the cab is responsible for the overall tone of your guitar. However, the cab would not impact the character of the amp. So the way your amp dynamically responds to your right hand, the way the amp saturates the mid, the way the amp provides the presence and top end character is not defined by the cab, it is defined by the amp. However, the cab is sort of a filter that pushes that character and reveals it and allows it to open either in the right direction or in the wrong. In the mix that I showed you, some of the cabs that I selected were playing wrong. They sounded flubby and muddy and then had a wrong amplification of the top end, which resulted in a trebly frequency. Some other cabs sounded really modern and I loved them, but they required a lot of work. They had a lot of mid-range that just sounded annoying and stuck out of the mix, and it needed a lot of correction with the EQ afterwards. However, some of the cabs just worked pretty much straight away and required minimal correction. So, to sum up, the cab works as a tone filter for your amp, amplifying its character and allowing it, or not allowing it, to shine through. Cab is responsible for the tone, whereas the amp is responsible for the character. Since we're talking about filtering pretty much, the cab impacts it significantly more. I would say, quite literally, 80% of the tone that we experience today was derived from a cab. However, you cannot receive a character from a cab, and that has to be driven by the amp. I hope that this comparison makes sense. This was detailed and somewhat complicated, but I think this data is quite unique and very, very important. So, as always, any questions, hit me up in the comments. And until next time, like, subscribe, share, take care.